Streaming worldwide from the Klamath Sports Network studios in Klamath Falls, it's time for the KSN Underground Podcast with Brian Gailey.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. My name is Brian Gailey, and I'm the publisher of Klamath Sports Network. This week, we're talking high school basketball. Teams got underway with some regional tournaments. Your Mazama boys were in Reading. Mazama girls were in Arcata. Both the Henley and boys girls were in Wairika. And the Pels, Klamath Union Pelicans, were over in Phoenix, taking on teams over there. In today's episode, we're going to be talking Viks with Mazama boys varsity head coach Justin Davidson on what's going on with the Mazama boys over there. We're going to follow that up with the Gaucho Collective featured interview talking with Mazama girls varsity head coach Joy Lease and how her girls did in their tournament in Arcata. With both coaches, we're actually going to be discussing those tournaments, as well as December non-league basketball games. We're going to preview the Skyline Conference and we're also going to be taking a look at and questioning their thoughts on a shot clock. As you know, in Oregon high school basketball, there is no shot clock. Unlike with other states that surround Oregon, college uses it, pros use it, but OSAA has yet to adopt a shot clock for high school basketball. We're going to talk a little bit about what our coaches think about that, and I'm going to give my thoughts near the end of the show on what I think should happen with the shot clock. New this week is the podcast Hotline. It's 541-887-0274. It's a new way you can interact with the show. It gives you the ability to call in and record messages that we could use here on the show. Often I'm asking you guys your opinion on what you think about certain topics, a little bit of feedback, a little two-way communication here on the podcast. In the past, it's been email or comments left on Facebook or YouTube or something like that. But now you guys have an opportunity to have a voice here on the podcast by giving us a phone call at 541-887-0274. As always, you can email me at info@klamathsportsnetwork.com, or you can leave comments on our Facebook or YouTube posts, but go ahead, give me a call. Once again, 541-887-0274. Today's episode is brought to you by the members of the Klamath Sports Network family, the KS Insiders. For just $5 a month, you can help support what we do here at Klamath Sports Network. Computers, cameras, fuel, the time, it's all not cheap. Your membership to the KS Insiders helps offset some of these costs that remain after sponsors help with advertising and things like that. I do greatly appreciate it. Again, those things are not cheap. They have to come in. They're part of the business. They do what they do. I'm not rich, and sports coverage is not going to make me rich by any stretch of the means. That's not why I'm here anyway. I'm here to tell the stories of our brilliant student athletes, and it's with your help I'm able to help tell these stories. So please become a KS Insider. Help me out. That way we can all share together. You can learn more about this program at klamathsports.net and click on the yellow button that says Become a KS Insider. This past week has been a pretty busy week here for me, both in the sports world and on the news desk as well. This past weekend, I got a chance to go watch the Oregon Tech Owls play while all our local high school athletes were away at their tournaments. I have to say I was pretty impressed with both the men and the women up there at Oregon Tech, but honestly, the teams are always good in my opinion, and what really stole the show for me, and this is the first time I've been up there in a while, was the revamped lobby of the Oregon Tech arena. They're the host Danny Miles Court. The new lobby, they've taken things of the old and brought in new and memorabilia. The old Tech basketball court hanging outside with the old design on it. It's pretty neat out there. Totally Instagram worthy out there. As well as inside, there's a brand new trophy case that highlights everything that the Owls have been able to do in all their sports. It looks absolutely amazing. There's some jerseys hanging on the wall. They have done a fantastic job in the remodel of that. They kept it simple. They kept it modern. It's well done. It's elegant. I think they've done a fantastic job with that new lobby area. Several months ago, in the process of doing this remodel, I got a contact from the sports director up there, as well as the athletic director for Oregon Tech Owls. They were looking for something to put in the elevator, and they came across one of my images that I captured a few years ago on a pink out night and asked me to donate the photo. I did, and then I forgot about it. I totally 100% forgot about it until this weekend when I I actually saw the elevator doors open up. Somebody else was going in, and holy moly, pink out all over the inside of the elevator. I was absolutely floored. They did it in a big sticker, 3-sided sticker that takes 3 sides of the elevator. It looks great. If you haven't been up there, if you don't ride the elevator, push the button, take a look, see what's there. I thought it looks good, but then again, I'm a little biased. So what do you think? Let me know. Use that new call-in number we've got for the hotline, 541-887-0274. Let me know. What do you think of the new Oregon Tech Athletics Center Tech Rec? It's all downstairs where the pool was. It's all been rebuilt for students. It has turned into a fantastic facility. Danny Miles Court was redone several years ago, but it never was completely finished. It was always seemed kind of partially done, but now it's all done. It's all finished. It looks great. I think it looks awesome. We were delayed here on this podcast coming out 24 hours because yesterday I was on scene for a Burn to Learn with Klamath County Fire District 1, as well as Kingsley Fire and the KCC Fire Apprenticeship Program. There is some really cool stuff happening in the firefighter world through KCC. That's another conversation for another time. But I wasn't able to get our podcast out yesterday because I was out there with our brave men and women of the firefighting departments here in town and watching them do a Burn to Learn out there on an old building out there by the livestock auction yard and the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. It was great. It was good to see these guys in action. It was great to be out there. Got some photos. Got to talk to a few people on that. That consumed all my day yesterday, unfortunately, and kept me from doing the podcast here today. If you haven't seen that, head over to klamathfallsnews.org, and the photos and the story is over there on that site. But lots of cool stuff going on, both sports, news, things going on here in the basin. Again, those are topics for a whole nother podcast out there. And we're going to be right back in just a moment. When we do, it's Talkin' Viks with Coach Davidson. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode. You, our KS Insiders. You might be asking, who is a KS Insider? A KS Insider is a financial supporter of Klamath Sports Network. I can hear you now. He wants money. Before you tune me out, listen to this. KS Insider is a way for fans to support what is done here on Klamath Sports Network, because without your support, content and shows like KSN Underground would not exist. Anyone can be a KS Insider, especially if you love high school athletics. Parents and family of players? Check. Fans of a school or program? Check. Fans of what we do here at Klamath Sports Network? Check. People with a pulse? Check. I invite you to help by pledging as little as $5 per month. Every little bit helps keep me caffeinated and fuel in the tank to cover those road games. For more information, visit klamathsports.net and click on the yellow button at the top of the page that says Become a KS Insider. Our program is managed via the Patreon platform. There is no obligation for you to sign up. You can cancel at any time. Pledges start at $5 per month. Content like this cannot be made without support from people like you. Thank you. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. I appreciate you listening here tonight. New tonight, write this number down, put it in your phone, because when you're ready to call in, you don't need to be searching for it. It's 541-887-0274. It's the new KSN Underground Podcast hotline. It's our communications line where you can talk back and forth with us. Up next, it's Talkin' Viks with Coach Davidson. He's the head coach of Mazama Boys varsity basketball. He has been coaching 13 to 14 seasons of basketball, starting out in Elmira and moving all over the Willamette Valley before coming to Klamath Falls. We chat about last weekend's tournament play with the boys in Reading. We discuss December's non-league games and a couple of 5A matchups they have coming up, as well as previewing the Skyline Conference that will begin in mid-January. We also get his thoughts on a shot clock in the OSAA. Here's my interview with Coach Davidson. Coach Davidson, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So how long have you been coaching basketball? You're the basketball head coach for the Mazama Boys basketball team. How long have you been coaching?
This is year 13 or 14.
That's a bit.
Yeah. Started my career as a JV2 girls basketball coach at my alma mater, Elmira High School. Moved up to JV from there. Then spent some time at Lane Community College working with the women's basketball program. moved from there. Once I finished my associate's degree, I transferred to Western Oregon, worked with them in the women's basketball program for a year, had our first child, came back to Eugene. I was commuting back and forth, so coming back to Lane made sense. And then it came time to look for a real paying job, and that's how I ended up down here. Picked up track at first, and then I helped coach Lease with basketball and slowly made my way here. This is my third year with the boys.
So 30 years of working with the boys, 13, 14 years overall. That's quite a bit of experience.
It shocked me. I was talking with my wife a couple years ago, and we were counting it up, and we got to past 10, and I was like, wow, I've been a basketball coach for over a decade now. It feels like I just started sometimes.
It can easily go that way, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been so long ago, yet yesterday when we all got started doing what we do. What's been your favorite part coaching?
I enjoy developing relationships with the kids. I think sometimes I learn more from them than they learn from me. Over doing this a decade, I've learned that there's a lot of variation. Kids come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and I think experiencing that has been probably the most fun for me.
Diverse atmosphere, right?
Absolutely.
It helps with getting to know those things and those kids and knowing those different things. When we talk about game day, basketball, you have several games a week, and like say football where it's just Friday night, you might have 2, maybe even 3 games, depending if there's a tournament or something going on.
Right.
What are game days like for you as a coach?
I mean, game day is my favorite day. It's the kids' favorite day too. So part of it is managing that emotion a little bit. It's easy to get a little too amped up and then underperform for that. So we try and keep a relatively cool, calm atmosphere leading up to it. Kind of treat it business-like. That way, as we're going through our strides and steps, the game is easier than practice was. So that's been the focal point for the boys this year.
Now, do your boys, do they wear ties? Do they dress up on game day? Do they do something special?
When they get the memo, yes, they do. When they get the memo, I like them to look sharp. I like people to ask, like, hey, why are you dressed up today? And for them to be able to say, it's game day. And then usually the next question is like, well, are you guys home or are you away? I think it generates some excitement for the kids and for the student body because they want to be involved as well.
Now, do you travel with the kids on the bus when you go on road trips?
Typically, I do, yeah. I like to be a part of it. I like to travel with them. I don't necessarily enjoy the bus rides, but I want them to feel like, well, if the head coach is doing it, then, I should be able to do it too. It's not like it's below me to ride the bus or anything like that.
What would you say has been your hardest thing you've done while coaching, or what is the hardest part about coaching?
I think the hardest part is trying to meet everybody where they are. Basketball, I have 10 guys on the varsity right now, and they're 10 very different guys, and they have very different learning styles. And so it's making sure that you hit every point. You have your visual, you have your audio, and then you have your kinesthetic learners. And so being able to always hit those things. I think sometimes I neglect one or two, just absent-minded, not even really focusing on it. And then a guy comes back later and is like, well, I don't really understand this. And I'm like, well, I told you. He's like, and I'm like, okay, I'll show you. Let's try that. And so really just being able to be flexible like that.
Much more intimate than a lot of the other sports, right? It's a smaller team. You select the people more or less that's on the team. I'm sure you have tryouts and people don't make it. But out of the ones who do make it, it's a much tighter group, isn't it?
Yeah, much more tight-knit. And then you really have to have guys that are in it for the team because your 10th guy on the bench can be just as valuable as your first starter. And so it's making sure that everybody is involved and everybody's in it for the right reasons, I think can be difficult at times.
Very much so. Looking back, you said 13, 14 years overall coaching here. What has been your fondest memory of coaching any of the sports, not just here at Mazama?
Some of my best memories come from my time at Lane. We won a lot of games, which was always fun. We won 2 championships, 2012, 13, I think, and 2015, 16. So those were a fun group of girls, really a fun staff and fun environment in general. Made it to many Final Fours while we were there. So, winning is always fun. But I think it's what you learn from individuals through losing and through winning, I think are probably my favorite memories, because I think you get closer in losses, and then you kind of get to celebrate that closeness when you win.
As we alluded to just a moment ago, you talked about the small teams being closer and things like that. Those wins and losses do bring the team even closer.
Absolutely.
Not just practicing and, the road trips. It is really the losses that really bond a team.
Yeah. Also coaching track, you experienced a little bit of that in like the relay aspect. And I mean, we've had some pretty good relays the past few years. And so when they've not done well, that same kind of thing, they figure out how to do better, and they kind of bond and get a little bit closer. Not to get out of winter sports, but
Well, we'll allude to track just a little bit, because you're the head coach of track and field here for Mazama as well. It's an individual sport, but a team sport for track, right?
Absolutely.
You're still you versus everybody else. For example, if you're throwing shot, it's you versus everybody else, but you and your teammates count towards a team goal.
Yeah.
Right. With your point total and stuff like that. Different than any of the other sports, especially the boys basketball that you're doing this year as well, right?
Right.
We're talking with Coach Justin Davidson here, talking Viks here today. You guys just got back from, you were out of town this last weekend at the Harlan Carter Invitational down in Shasta. 1-2 coming home. You had 1 win, 2 losses. You defeated Shasta High School on a close game, 55-53. But you did lose to Enterprise 28-66. Unfortunately, that one not near as close probably as you'd like. That was your first game.
Yep.
You probably learned a lot of stuff. Your boys learned a lot of stuff that first game.
Learned a ton.
And then your last game you played against Red Bluff, a tough team itself, 51-57. That was a pretty close game. What did you learn about your guys down there in Reading?
So to kind of take it game by game a little bit, that Enterprise game, they're typically a pretty good school down in California. Not a whole lot of film to scout on them, being our first game. They had a couple under their belt. They had a couple of good kids who were probably Division II prospects, I would say, and showed it. Like they were definitely basketball players. So we kind of took that one a little bit, definitely learned some lessons as far as being flexible and really coming out a lot stronger. And I'll never blame officiating for anything, but the atmosphere down in California is a lot more physical than anything that we're used to up here. So being able to experience that firsthand, I felt was really good for the boys. Really helped us coming into the second game, Shasta, who was also the host school. So it was kind of like a home game for them. That one, the boys played hard. It was a completely different team than the first night. The lessons were learned. They bounced back really, really well. And really, we kind of let them back in the fourth quarter. I think we had a 10-point lead going into the quarter, and then kind of let them chip away at it, but we're able to hold on. And I think we're better for being in that close game, and then pushing into Red Bluff, back and forth game the entire time. 35 seconds left in the game. There's a shot clock in California, so shot clock is turned off at this point. And we call a timeout to try and draw up, how we're going to defend. The execution wasn't exactly what Coach deemed would have helped, but we ended up fouling with 15 seconds, or after 15 seconds, so 20 seconds left in the game. They go 1 for 2, so we're only down 3. They come back, we get a clean look at a 3, and it just doesn't go. So I think that could have been anybody's game, much like the Shasta game. So I think that helped us as far as, we can do this, we can execute, and then really it's just taking that next step forward.
I didn't get a chance to watch any of the games. As far as I know, they weren't streamed anywhere. So I don't know how your guys did. I didn't get a chance to watch firsthand. But the gap between what you guys scored and what Enterprise scored, 28-66. Looking at that, do you think that was an emotional wake up call to your guys to get ready? That hey, we're not as good as we thought we were, or maybe it was we got to work a little bit better here or there. What did that game trigger?
I think so. Coming into it, like this team that I have right now, 4 of them played for me last year. The other 6 are coming into me new-ish. Some of them were JV guys. Some of them coming back. Drew Rabel, Aiden Kent didn't play last year, so now they're coming into the fold. So I think it was a mix of learning each other, learning me, and just learning the style, because it's different from when they all played as sophomores. We changed up a bunch of stuff between then and now. And so I think kind of a a mixture of the two, paired with the emotions, paired with it being the first game, paired with it being a road trip and being in hostile territory, so to speak. We're the only Oregon school in that entire tournament. Everyone else knows each other, so there was kind of that outsider role a little bit. But I tell you, when we beat Shasta, there was nobody happier than all of the other teams at that tournament.
It proved to them that Shasta was beatable.
Yeah, they were. I had many coaches come up to me and be like, "Coach, man, we were so excited that you guys beat Shasta," and I'm like, awesome.
Well, that is pretty cool. You did get your first win. The boys did get their first win.
Yep.
So tonight you have St. Mary's. As we record this, when this comes out, you'll have already played St. Mary's. With this afternoon, we're talking about that. You got that game coming up, 7 o'clock over there in Medford. What time are you guys heading over?
We're going to leave here at 1:30 today. It's a triple header. So our freshmen will play, and then our JVs will play after them, and then we'll take the court at 7 o'clock after the Jays.
So 7 o'clock for the varsity over there in Medford. Who are your starters going to be tonight?
We're going to have Kyle Hargrave is going to start at the 1, Aiden Kent at the 2, Daniel Yancey at the 3, and then we're going to have Blaine Jeffrey at the 4 and Drew Rabel at the 5. So a senior-led starting lineup tonight.
What is your going against the Crusaders? They're not a joke over there. They're 3A school, private schools. What's your game plan going into them tonight? You going to treat them any different than the California schools you just faced?
I don't think so. They had some tough games against 3 other teams in our league. They've already played a North Valley, who they beat, and then they lost to Klamath Union by 3, and they lost to Phoenix by 12. A much different Phoenix team this year than we've seen in previous years. So it's going to be a tough matchup. It's no sleepwalk for sure. We're going to focus on what we do as far as pushing the pace, pushing the tempo, and trying to play some good, tough shutdown D. They've got a couple shooters that we're definitely conscientious of who, if left open, they will knock it down.
Going back to the last weekend just a little bit, do you have any players out of those starters you mentioned here for tonight? Anybody kind of stepped up over the weekend who maybe shown something they hadn't shown to you previously? Or
yeah, saw some great stuff out of Blaine Jeffrey. He came off the bench for me last year and got just a handful of minutes here and there, and really stepped up to the plate. Got a lot of boards against some really physical guys. We were not in a situation where we really had any mismatches against any of the California teams. We were typically on the receiving end of a mismatch. So we weren't taller than anybody. We were faster than a couple guys, but for every fast guy we had, the other team had 2. For every tall guy we had, the other team had 2 or 3. So Blaine really stepped up and really liked what I saw out of a couple juniors in Brody Hubble and Trevor Anderson. Really showed me that they are varsity basketball players and that they deserve to be there, and they're not going to be giving up their spots anytime soon.
Talk with Coach Justin Davidson, Mazama boys basketball head coach. Looking ahead to what you've got this month, league play won't start until mid-January, but you've got a pretty tough non-league season ahead for you this month. On the 10th, you host Crater. On the 11th, you're at Eagle Point, and then you have Baker and Ontario on the 17th and 18th, and then the Sisters Holiday Shootout after Christmas, which is always a tough tournament there. What's your thoughts on these teams as they're coming up for you this December?
It's going to be a tough run. Crater's no joke. They just toppled Henley down in Wairika in a double-digit ball game. The last time I played Crater, they had Nate Biddle and a couple other guys. Not to name drop people, but they were really good when we played them a couple years ago, and I anticipate the same thing now. Looking at their roster, they have some really good JV players from back then that are now varsity guys, and they grew a little bit. They're tall, and they're deep. They're not just 2, 3, 4 guys. They're 6, 7, 8 guys deep. Eagle Point's going to be a tough matchup. They've played some pretty close games so far. Looking at Baker in Ontario, I think it's great that they're coming down here. I played Baker a couple years ago in a tough game. So really looking forward to that matchup. They just beat Banks in a very high-scoring affair. I think the final was like 88-85 or something outrageous like that, which is crazy for Oregon basketball with no shot clock. They had to just be pushing the tempo, getting shots up. And then that Sisters Holiday Tournament, man, it is always tough. You see Banks there, you see Marist there. Typically, Hanley's over there. We're there. Like there's nobody to sleep on in that tournament. Typically, we see Cottage Grove. They're back anew, looking a lot tougher this year. So it's going to be tough, especially then going into the crossover tournament in January. So we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very tough December. Should go without mentioning, but I'm going to say anyway, Crater, Eagle Point, both 5A schools. So you're playing up a classification as well. So on the road to Crater and hosting Eagle Point on the 10th and 11th. Conference, it's one of the toughest conferences in basketball. I say that every conference is a tough conference, right?
Sure.
There's always some great teams in there. There's always some so-so teams in there. And then there's some upsetting teams in there.
Yeah.
Looking at the Skyline, you've got North Valley, you've got Hidden Valley, which is probably a sleeper threat this year, Hidden Valley. Klamath Union, last year's champion, they went undefeated. Henley, of course, dominant team. You guys are in there. Phoenix, you said, is an improved team. How's your outlook here on the Skyline this year?
It's going to be tough. I think it could almost be anybody's conference this year. KU, I mean, they graduated a lot, but they return a lot at the same time. Henley returned just about everybody. Hidden Valley, while they graduated a lot, I think Coach Kassler's done an excellent job in getting this next group ready to go. They've had some tough games already. North Valley returns a lot, and Phoenix returns a lot as well as us. And when I say a lot, that's 4 to 5 to 6 guys that are coming back with varsity experience. So I think it's going to be a tough year for everyone.
Experience is definitely not something to be taken lightly, is it? Your talent is definitely something to consider. Your height, how good somebody is in the paint, or just being able to get a free throw. But your experience in those games, seeing those teams before, that matters quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
You mentioned it a couple times as well. I'm going to ask you, this is kind of our last question here today, and I'll let you get back to everything that you're working on here today. Yeah. You mentioned a couple times shot clock. Shot clock in California, no shot clock in Oregon.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on that? Would you like to see shot clock?
I personally love the shot clock. Coming from a college background where it's what I did for 7 years. I remember when I first started coaching with Coach Joy Lease and sitting on her bench, and in my mind, the shot clock would still go off because you kind of get accustomed to it, and just sitting there like, why haven't we shot the ball yet? Oh wait, that's right. We don't have one of those. So I'm a proponent for it. I think it facilitates some better basketball, and you can't really like hold it and stall. So it kind of gets rid of that game plan, so to speak. But yeah, just to be able to see the difference in pace, like it is different playing with the shot clock.
Much so. Coach, I want to thank you for talking with us here and Talkin Viks here, part of the KSN Underground Podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap today?
No, just again, I appreciate you having me on and looking forward to the season and continuing to talk with you.
All right. Good luck tonight, Coach. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you being on as a guest here today. If you've got any questions for any of the coaches or anybody out there, call our number, 541-887-0274, or send me an email at info@klamathsportsnetwork.com. Questions you may have for coaches you'd like to hear on the show, things like that. We would love to hear from you. Stick around after the break. It's our Gaucho Collective featured interview. We're sticking with basketball here today. That's our theme. We're going to be talking with Mazama High School girls varsity head coach, Joy Lease. Located at 11th and Main in downtown Klamath Falls, Gaucho Collective provides a fun and modern atmosphere for business owners and freelancers looking to grow their current presence or expand out of a home office.
Gauchos are diverse,
including those from higher education, internet and web development, photography, and marketing, just to name a few. Gaucho Collective engages entrepreneurs in ways that traditional offices cannot, through an open concept with a variety of semi-private and private spaces to suit all your business and collaborative needs. Amenities include flexible workspace options, fast and secure internet, document printing, kitchenette, utilities, conference room, hot coffee, and so much more.
Gaucho is even a great option for students looking to study off campus.
Community, collaboration, co-working. Your new office is waiting at Gaucho Collective. Learn more and become a member at gauchocollective.com. That's gauchocollective.com. Welcome back to the KSN Underground Podcast. It's now time for our Gaucho Collective featured interview. We're going to be talking with Mazama girls varsity head coach Joy Lease. Coach Lease has been working with basketball for over 22 years. We talk about that during the interview. We chat with her about last week's tournament play in Arcata. Like with Coach Davidson, we talk about December's non-league games as well as look ahead to the Skyline Conference. And we hear from Coach Lease about the shot clock. Coach Lease, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
That's a different Coach Lease this week.
That's right. This is, well, I won't say it, but.
We've got Coach Joy Lease. You are the head coach for the girls basketball team here for Mazama High School. How long have you been coaching basketball?
I was trying to think of this earlier today. I think overall, this is probably my 22nd year.
22nd year. So that's a bit of time.
Yeah.
What has kept you going back for Coach 22 years here in basketball?
I love it. I love the competition. I love the kids, and of course my own kids have come through. So I'm on my last one now, and that's really what keeps me going is the kids, and then of course just my love of the game. It's
all about the kids, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're telling these stories, right?
Yes, it is.
We just mentioned, I was going to ask you what's your favorite part, but you kind of just answered it right there with the kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I look, every year I miss them when we're in the off season. And even though I try to support them in their other sports, there's some kids I just don't see as much. And so I enjoy seeing them every day.
I was just talking with Coach Davidson a few minutes ago, and I asked him, we talked a little bit about what game day is like. Unlike, say, football, you got multiple games a week. You can have 2, maybe even 3 if there's a tournament in one weekend, depending on what's going on. What's game day like for you when you're getting ready?
For me personally, it's another day. Early in my career, I'd get nervous, and then I realized that I really have very little control over what happens out there. And so it's just a matter of having the confidence that my kids are prepared. Game time rolls around and I'm usually ready to go. So really, I don't approach a game day much differently than I do any other day.
22 years doing this. What do you think has been the hardest thing about coaching basketball?
That's a good question. The hardest thing for me is knowing when hindsight, that's hard because I can go back and look at every game that we should have won that we didn't, and know that it's mostly my responsibility. So that's hard to go back. You feel like you let kids down. And then, there's always those situations where you want to help a kid and just no matter what you do, it doesn't work. And, those situations are heartbreaking and it's hard to get over.
What's been your fondest memory while coaching? Is there anything that just sticks in your head like, oh, that was awesome?
Well, yeah, of course, sharing a state championship with my daughter, that's right up there at the top. Plus that team overall, I loved every single one of those girls, and it was just a magical year. So as much as I love the kids we have now and all the kids that I've coached throughout, that team was just extra special and will always hold a special place in my heart.
Rightfully so, it should.
Yeah.
Coaching with your own child and then getting a state title, there's something so awesome about that.
Yeah, the hardest part of that year was knowing that Monday after the state championship, we weren't coming to practice.
I've heard that from several people. You're in it for months at a time, practice and games, and that's what you eat, sleep, breathe, and live. Maybe you get that title, maybe you fall, or you don't even make the postseason, but at some point, it comes to an end, and that's tough.
It is. It's hard to move on. You go through a grieving process, especially in a situation where you lose your last game, which most teams do. And I try to explain that to our kids all the time that you're going to go through those same stages. It is a grieving process, but particularly hard when you're just loving every day.
So let's take a moment here, a little bit more personal question here. And what's life like in the Lease household? You've got a husband and wife coaching duo. Your husband's also the athletic director for the school. All your kids have been huge sports stars. You got one more here in the house now that you're working with. You're coaching here this year. What's life like when it's all sports all the time?
It's just our way of life. We don't know any different. After this year, we won't have a kid playing a sport, and I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. It's just going to be a big life change, that's for sure. It's just how we live.
Let's take a moment. We're going to dive into basketball now. I thank you for that inside information on all that stuff in your history. 22 years. That's awesome that you've been able to be doing that for that long. You guys, your team, your ladies, were over at the Arcata Invitational Tournament at Arcata High School this last weekend. You went 2-1, which, to come away 2 wins on the tournament in California. It's some tougher schools. They play a little different. It's pretty good. It
is. I was happy. Of course, I think we all feel like that first game got away from us, that if we played that team today, we win by 15. But over there, they get to start 2 weeks earlier, so they're in shape. Some of those teams had played 2 or 3 games by the time they played us, and we hadn't. And so I was pleasantly surprised with the way my team responded.
You mentioned that first one was a tough loss. It was to Fortuna, 35-38. It was a close game. You had, in your next 2, you had victories. You won against McKinleyville, 37-34, also kind of close. But then you opened it wide open against Hoopa Valley, 64-25. Talk to me about those games.
The first 2 games actually went into overtime as well. So to be in that situation that early in the season, you don't really have that much time and practice to practice those end-of-the-game situations. Plus, California, you're playing with a shot clock, which we don't have here. There's some rule differences that we don't have. There's no 10-second violation in the backcourt. There's no 5-second closely guarded count. And that's kind of a big adjustment, especially this early in the year. Our biggest issue in those 2 games is I felt like we couldn't score. We made a little bit of an adjustment in the 3rd game defensively that led to some easier baskets, and we were able to put up some points. So that made me feel better that we have that capability. And we're just kind of learning right now, learning each other. And after the funky year last year, we're a little bit behind already. So to come out of there with 2 wins was pretty dang good, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty good to come in there. It's tough schools, shot clock is that we're not accustomed to here. I'm going to ask you about shot clock here at the end, get your thoughts on that as well. Up next on the 10th, this Friday, you were going to 5A Crater. What have you learned from California and about your team in practice this week that you're going to be able to take over to Central Point?
We need to raise our level of intensity. They're going to be the best team that we've seen in a very long time. And probably since we played Hidden Valley last year as a 4A state champ. So we've got to be ready for a press break. We've got to be ready to handle ball pressure, size. They're going to crash the boards hard. They are just a very, very good team. And we got to come ready.
And the Comets, they are a 5A school, so you're playing up a classification. You learned a lot of stuff over there on the Redwood Coast to help you guys get ready. You're going to be more intense out there. Who are your starters going to be when you get over to Central Point this weekend?
I actually haven't decided. We kind of bounced around some different lineups this last weekend, and the great thing is I really feel like we can go to our bench and not lose much. So for me, the starting lineup isn't as important as who finishes. At this point right now, Addie McGurr is a junior. She'll start at point guard. Kennedy Lease will be a shooting guard. Ella Bailey, a shooting guard. Then we have Sandra Hill, who's a senior, plays a forward, and Chelsea Gilmore is a junior who plays in the post. Your ladies here that are going to be starting for you or rotating off the bench, however you ended up setting it up, what kind of background do these girls have? They played for you for a while? Do you have any kind of first-time players here on varsity, or did they work their way up? No, the great thing about this group is all but one that traveled with us last weekend are juniors and seniors. We did take a freshman, Addie Byington, who she's the granddaughter of the great Dan Fast, who used to coach here at Mazama years ago, and she's just a competitor and improves every single day. So she's really the only player who doesn't really know our system, who's learning as she goes, and everybody else already knew the offense. They know what I expect, know how practices should be, and so it's made my job a lot easier. Your scheme, your practices and things like that, when you get ready to play, say, a 5A Crater, and you got Eagle Point here a little bit later this month, do you do anything a little different for those bigger schools? Not necessarily. We have our practice team that comes in a couple days a week, and so that helps simulate the level of intensity that we're going to see when we play good teams, but we do that no matter who we play. So our mentality is going to be that we got to play our game and let them do their thing. But we've got to keep that level of intensity up all the time, no matter who we're playing.
Keeping the motivation going, the intensity definitely helps with that, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So looking ahead to this month before league play will be mid-January when you start with that. On the 11th, you have Eagle Point. Actually, you have a whole lot of games at home, surprisingly. You have Eagle Point at home on the 17th, Baker, and then 18th is Ontario, as well as you're traveling to Astoria after Christmas for a tournament up there with a bunch of teams you probably haven't seen or played with unless it's postseason. That's going to be an interesting time. And you also have a pending one currently on the OSAA site against Sutherland on the 23rd. Have you heard anything? Is that one locked in yet?
Yeah, it's locked in. It's only pending because it's an endowment game and some paperwork has to be filed. And so once that paperwork gets done, it's locked in. We're playing. It's just a matter of filling out that paperwork. The part of the proceeds go to the OSAA Foundation, where they help provide shoes and equipment to underprivileged kids.
Very cool stuff that they do with the foundation there. But you got a tough schedule there. Eagle Point, another 5A school, Baker and Ontario coming in from Eastern Oregon, who are both historically tough teams. What's your thoughts as you head into December past this weekend?
We get through the month of December, and we're going to be in really good shape because we play. Baker is definitely one of the top teams at the 4A level. You have Crater, who's one of the best teams at the 5A level. You have Sutherland, who's arguably the best team at the 3A level. I mean, our schedule is tough as we've had in a long time. And to be able to play some of those teams at home is really exciting because that's another thing that's new this year. I've never played this many home preseason games. So I think it'll be exciting for our fans to get back in the gym and then to see some high-quality basketball, too.
We're hoping that things go the way they go. We can have fans in the gym, right? We'll keep our fingers crossed. We're going to knock on wood here.
Yeah.
We're talking here in your office with Coach Joy Lease, the Mazama Vikings girls basketball coach. Let's talk a little bit about conference play. It's ways off yet, but it's going to be one of the toughest conferences, in the 4A this year. Historically, Hidden Valley has been phenomenal in the conference. You guys have been great here as of recent. And then you got KU has got some stars coming up as well. They lost a few, but they got some stars there. And then Henley, of course, has been right there. It's going to be a tough conference. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's kind of wide open, honestly. Hidden Valley lost quite a bit. They have a new coach. I think their coach has been in the system, but, he may be doing his own thing. That's an adjustment time when that happens. They have a really good player who is looking at going to OIT. And, of course, Henley returns just about everyone from last year. They only graduated one player last year, so they're definitely going to be tough. After that, and of course, then we're right in the mix. So if I were to predict a league champion, I think it's going to be one of those three teams. Hoping it's us. We definitely have the ability. It's a matter of us going out and performing.
Getting that execution and having a tough preseason, a tough non-league competition in December, and of course that tournament that you're going to have in Astoria is certainly going to help get the girls ready for January, February, and so on, right?
Absolutely. Some coaches have a different philosophy. They want to play schools they know they're going to win to help boost their ranking. I do not have that feeling. I feel we need to play teams that are going to make us better, and our schedule and our preseason is definitely going to make us better.
Coach, I want to thank you for being on here with us here today. We're going to wrap here in just a couple moments, but before we do, I do want to ask you about that shot clock question. Mm-hmm. California has it, Oregon doesn't. What's your top thoughts on having a shot clock in Oregon? I
was actually on the committee with the OSAA that voted to approve a shot clock in Oregon. I just feel like we need to streamline the game with not only the states around us, but with the college game as well. And we're kind of the odd man out when it comes to that. If you're going to travel to Washington, you're going to play with the shot clock. And travel to California, you're going to play with the shot clock. Same thing if we go to Idaho. And it just helps keep the game moving. Nobody wants to watch a game that's 12-10 in the fourth quarter when a team holds the ball at half court. Now, I'm not saying that I've never done that. You've got to give your team a chance to win, but let's keep the game moving, and that's how kids want to play too. So I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good for all the way around. Years ago, watched a state championship game in Pendleton between two teams where the first half. That was their game plan. This team, who was clearly an underdog, stood at half court, and it took the legs out of the team who was ranked number 1, who should have won the game, and they didn't. It worked. They didn't employ that in the second half. They played them straight up and ended up winning. So, it was just a strategy that worked for them. Probably not something that I'm going to ever feel comfortable doing, but with a shot clock, it totally negates that idea. And just play. Let the best team win.
Let the best team win. Let the kids do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Go Viks.
Go Viks. Coach, thank you for being on, and good luck this week.
Thank you.
That was Coach Joy Lease on the Gaucho Collective featured interview. Much appreciation, Coach, for coming on to the show today and talking about all those wonderful topics. Good luck to you and your ladies this season in the Skyline Conference, as well as those non-conference games this December. A couple of big tournaments coming up for both the boys and the girls, and really for all the Basin teams then between Christmas and New Year's. We're going to be keeping our eye out for those as well. We're not done just yet. Coming up next, it's my thoughts on the shot clock in Oregon, and we also dive into the Skyline Conference.
Need some extra spending money? Want to be active and stay connected to the games you love? Become an athletic official. It's easy. Visit www.newofficials.org. With the recent decline of a number of officials, we need you now. It is your opportunity to give back to the Oregon high school sports community. Be part of the OSAA's statewide sportsmanship initiative. Don't delay. Become an official today. www.newofficials.org.
Welcome back, sports fans, to the KSN Underground Podcast. It's our basketball edition here for winter sports. Next week, we're going to be talking wrestling, but it is basketball season. They're a couple weeks in now. If you've got a comment or question or anything you'd like to share with us, call us in on our hotline. Leave us a message. We might be able to play that on a future episode of KSN Underground on the KSN Underground Podcast. It's 541-887-0274. And let's take a look here at the Skyline Conference. Most teams have played between 2 and 4 games so far this season. And if we look at the Skyline Conference, Klamath Union sits at the top overall. They're 2-0. They have wins against St. Mary's, a 3A school, as well as Douglas, another 3A school. That was in the Phoenix tournament that was held last weekend. They defeated St. Mary's 50-47 and Douglas 70-38. And they currently sit at top because they have no loss. They may have not played as many games as everybody else, but they have no losses yet, so they sit at the top of the conference. In second place is Phoenix, 2-1 on the season, followed by a tie between Henley and Mazama, both 2-2. We've already talked about Mazama here for a few minutes. Let's look at Henley. Henley's had wins against West Valley out of California, 62-43, and a win against Brookings Harbor, 58-45. But then lost to Crater 33-50. Those 3 games were held in Wairika at the Wairika tournament. A few days later, they played Ashland in Ashland and lost 46-64. Ashland and Crater, both 5A schools in the OSAA, so they were playing up a classification there. Hidden Valley comes in next. They're 1-2 on the season, and North Valley sits at the bottom, 0-3. On the girls' side of the Skyline, Klamath Union also at the top, 2-0 on the season. They were also over in Phoenix, played the same teams the boys did, St. Mary's and Douglas. They defeated St. Mary's 38-34, Douglas 54-47. Then we have a 4-way tie for second. Hidden Valley, Henley, Mazama, and North Valley all tied at 2-1. Henley, we're going to take a look at them. They played Cascade Christian in Wairika at that Wairika tournament and won 63-23. They also faced Etna out of California at that tournament, 59-44, and later lost to Crater 32-68. At the bottom of the league, still at 500, is Phoenix at 2-2. They're only sitting there at the bottom because they've had 2 losses. Everybody in the girls' Skyline has at least 2 wins. Actually, they all have 2 wins. It's just a variety of how many losses and how many games they've played. So now we've heard from Coach Davidson. We heard from Coach Lease regarding the shot clock in Oregon. And you're probably sitting there thinking, well, what's Brian's thoughts on the whole thing? And, honestly, it doesn't really matter what my thoughts are on it. I don't have any influence on the situation. However, if I were to be able to communicate with OSAA about it or the Athletic Directors Association and give my 2 cents on it, I would say that the shot clock would be beneficial to students in the Oregon Oregon high school basketball. It keeps the game going. It keeps it moving. It doesn't stall action. It doesn't stall play by having a team hold the ball near center court and just pass it around and burn up a minute or maybe even a minute and a half on the clock, just holding the ball and not doing anything with it. That makes for a boring game to watch. It's not very fun to play when your opponent is sitting there just playing keep away from you. It can't be any fun to coach. We talked to both Davidson and Lease there about that. They've used it. They said they've used it to their advantage because it's a rule that they can go by. It's something they can do. There's no shot clock violations. So they've done it to benefit their teams, but they don't like to do it. And I would imagine that's for most coaches out there. Most coaches are probably on the same boat where they want a faster paced game. They don't want to be on the side where the other team's playing keep away from. You don't want to do that. And on the broadcast, on the news side of things, it sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. It sucks to call a game. It sucks to report a game that's super low scoring, that has no breakaway plays, that has no superstar action because the team just continues to hold the ball and hold the ball and hold the ball and then maybe goes in for a layup or something. It's not very fun at all on this side as well. But will OSAA adopt the rule? That's the big question. What do you think? Give me a call, send me an email. Let me know, 541-887-0274. You leave me a message. Maybe we'll use it in a future episode here on the show. You can email me, info@klamathsportsnetwork.com. If OSAA were to approve it, as you heard, Coach Joy Lease was on a committee that voted to add it into the system. That would take a couple of rule changes. Your 5-second violations and things like that probably would go away in replacement of a total shot clock, 20, 25 seconds, maybe 30-second shot clock, depending on what it might be. But it would take ratification. It would take time. It would take change. It certainly wouldn't happen this season, maybe a season, most likely 2 seasons down the line if a change were to be made. Would I like to see it? Absolutely. Is it going to be anytime soon if it happens at all? No, it's not. So don't hold your breath on this one. Although, might not be a bad idea for some of these athletic directors to look into how to adapt their current scoreboard systems to include a shot clock. And that's another part of this whole thing too. Adding a shot clock to some of these systems may not be cost effective. That is a thought as well. It just popped into my head right now. Some of these systems, these Oregon basketball systems don't have a shot clock added to them. If I remember correctly, the new one at KU does have the ability to have it. I believe. Don't hold me. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it is out there. But some of these older systems that like Mazama's older system may not be able to be retrofitted to add a shot clock. They may have to get a whole new scoreboard system to do that. That becomes extremely expensive on the school level. So we'll have to wait and see how this all pans out. Had a great basketball show here for you today. We talked Mazama boys basketball and Mazama girls basketball. We took a look at the Skyline Conference, briefly looked at Klamath Union and Henley. Not to discredit anything that those two programs have got going on. I think on both the boys and girls side of the Skyline Conference, it's pretty even. I don't know if there's anybody that's going to run away with this conference this year. I wouldn't be surprised if there's 4 loss teams in there, some 5 loss teams in there at the top as your champion. It may come to tiebreakers this year rather than an overall win-loss record. You might find that there's 2 or 3 teams that may be tied at the top at the end of the season. And ultimately, it's going to be coming down to who owns those tiebreakers as to see who's going to come out on top of the conference this year. We talked about shot clock. And of course, our new podcast hotline at 541-887-0274. You now have the ability to talk and give us feedback here on the show record a voice message there on our line. There's an intro there that walks you through how to get started, get it done, and something we can use here on the show. I'd love to hear from you guys out there. Next week, we're talking wrestling. We'll have Coach Penrod on the show from Mazama Wrestling. We're also hoping to get a student athlete on the show. I got a couple in mind. We got to wait and see if they're willing to come on or not. But hopefully we'll get a student athlete on the show next week, as well as we talk wrestling. So I greatly thank you guys all for listening in today's show. I thank our guests today, Coach Davidson, as well as Coach Lease. I thank you guys for listening in today. There's multiple ways you can listen. You can catch us on a podcast app on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many others out there as well. We're also on YouTube and Facebook here for the podcast. If you're in one of those, please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think of the show. Comments on it, shot clock comments, things like that. Call us into our hotline. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you guys. This is our show all together. I'd like it to be interactive as much as possible, as much as a podcast can be interactive. Email again is info@klamathsportsnetwork.com. Hotline number 541-887-0274. Sports fans, on behalf of my guests, Coach Justin Davidson and Coach Joy Lease, I am Brian Gailey, and we will see you at the game.
Show your love. Head over now to Facebook and drop a like.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram.
This has been the KSN Underground Podcast with Brian Gailey. The podcast is a production of Klamath Sports Network. Join the game at klamathsports.net.